Welcome to the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We're excited to have you be a part of this important public process. Tonight, you will have the opportunity to address the commission on both non-agenda and agenda items. The agendas and speaker request cards are located in the back of the council chambers. You must fill out a speaker request card in order to address the commission. Please hand in your completed card to a city staff member. You may check the "I do not wish to speak" option on the card. This allows you to still voice your opinion on an item on the record without having to speak. In accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, please contact a staff member if you need any assistance. Public comment on a non-agenda item will take place during the citizen comment portion of the evening. These are items that don't appear on tonight's formal agenda. The commission secretary will call your name when it's time for you to speak. At that time, please approach the podium and tell us your name for the record. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. The timer is on the screens visible from the podium. Note that you may also choose not to speak if other speakers before you have said what you wanted to say. Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission meetings stream live on YouTube and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, October 18th, 2023 is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the secretary please note the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Wang is present. Commissioner Sambito is present. Commissioner Booth is present. Vice Chairman Clymer is present. Chairman Kish is present. Commissioner Hegedus is absent. We have a quorum. At this time, a vote shall be taken to excuse members unable to attend due to extenuating circumstances. Is there a motion and second to excuse Commissioner Hegedus from the meeting? Sorry. Thank you. I've had a motion by Vice Chairman Clymer, second by Commissioner Booth. Please enter your votes. Motion passes.
Item number 1 is to approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on September 13th, 2023. Will the secretary please read the recommendation?
Approve the draft minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting held on September 13th, 2023. Is there a motion and a second for the staff recommendation? My apologies. There, motion and second, please. Apologies. I have a motion from Vice Chairman Clymer and a second from Commissioner Wang. Please enter your vote. Motion passes.
Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on a non-agenda item. Are there any speaker cards?
I've not received any.
Thank you. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on any non-agenda item? Thank you. This is an opportunity for the commission members to disclose any ex parte communications that they may have had prior to this meeting on any item scheduled for discussion on this agenda. Ex parte communications is any outside communications commissioners have had regarding items on tonight's agenda. Have there been any? No? Thank you. There are 6 public hearings on the agenda tonight. As a reminder, the Planning and Zoning Commission is a recommendation board for council. The commission will vote on each item and forward their recommendation to council. council makes the final decision on all items. Please be aware, item number 2, the rezone for Las Brisas, will be renoticed for the November 15th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Agenda item number 2 is the Estrella rezone, and I will open the public hearing. Principal Planner Christian Williams will present. Good evening, Christian.
Good evening, Commissioner Kish and Council, and welcome, Commissioner Smith. Christian Williams, Principal Planner, here with the City of Goodyear, here with the rezoning request before you this evening from Andrew Yancey for a rezoning on a property within the city. The property we are discussing today is approximately 37.43 acres and is located in the Estrella community on both the northeast and the southeast corners of Estrella Parkway in the future San Miguel Eastern Extension. For those unfamiliar with this area, San Miguel is approximately 1 mile south of the Elliott Road alignment. The property is within the general plan land use category of neighborhood, and the property is currently zoned within the Estrella Phase 1 PAD and the Estrella Parcel 12.36 PAD, which includes underlying zonings of R16 residential, junior high school, and commercial. And the property is located where this star is right here, about 1 mile south of the Elliott Road alignment. So zooming in a little bit closer, you can see that the property is just south of the Overlook community within Mountain Ranch and a city-owned well site. It is west of the 330-foot wide power line corridor. It is east of an HOA open space, as well as the Highlands and El Cielo communities of Mountain Ranch, and it is north of Acacia Foothills in Mountain Ranch as well. Sites right here. For an abbreviated history, the property was originally zoned back in 1987 for a junior high and commercial. In 2019, the northern approximately 18.4 acres of the property was rezoned from commercial to PAD for single-family residential, equivalent to the city's R16 zoning. And today, the applicant is seeking to rezone the southern areas of this site that are currently zoned junior high again on 15.1 acres and commercial on 3.95 acres, the Nacha Parcel 80, to R16 with a PAD overlay. As a note, the rezone still retains commercial on the 7.68 acres of property that are on the remainder of Parcel 80 that lie east of the power line corridor. So approximately 5.36 acres of commercial exists beyond the 7-acre power line corridor property. That property again is right here, and you can see all of the existing zoning categories in this map below. This PAD overlay, applicant seeks to replace again that existing zoning, and the development seeks to match the existing approved zoning for the Estrella Parcel 12.36 site on the north for the overall site. It also includes that there's a maximum lot coverage of 75%, a front garage setback of 18 feet, a minimum rear yard setback of 15 feet. However, they propose upping the open space requirements to 20%, and the minimum lot width would be 50 foot wide for the lots. Based on some topological challenges, the PAD overlay also clarifies walls and retaining wall standards, as well as enhancements when certain heights are met, and codifies that within the zoning, as well as our position on the amenities and connectivity elements and streetscape elements. We'll go into a little bit of detail on that next slide. So a typical R16 reduced lot would require, or community would require, one amenity element. And being that Estrella has already provided 2 community centers with pools and a host of other amenities, so long as these residents are granted access to those amenities, that one amenity point has been fulfilled. The 2 connectivity elements that will be provided in this neighborhood would include connectivity to the trails to the east of this development. Some of those lie within the power line corridor and connect to the greater trail systems within Estrella. And all of the blocks within this neighborhood shall not exceed 660 feet in length to create the small block connectivity element point. For streetscape elements, typically 2 would be required for a development with R16 reduce. But considering the amount of streetscape elements that exist within Estrella, this development will need to implement 1, and they will have the choice between detached sidewalks with street trees, porches, or paver driveways as illustrated in some of the images on the right side of the slide. And for a note, those are the options that are also granted in the existing 12.36 rezone. During the February neighborhood meeting, in which 22 residents attended, the city heard concerns about increased traffic, on-street parking, a loss of mountain views, and a loss of the middle school site, as well as concerns for water infrastructure. And following that meeting, the city received 2 resident emails expressing concerns over the rezoning application generally. Those emails expressed concerns more specifically about the loss of commercial, a desire for open space, and a general dissatisfaction with land use changes in Estrella. Since the publishing of this public hearing tonight, the city received an email supporting the development of single family on the site. And staff has evaluated the impacts of the proposed zoning on the greater community. With no major concerns being found, staff recommends you forward an approval recommendation to rezone the property from final planned area development, which there are 2 of them, to a PAD with R16 zoning district with PAD overlay, subject to the stipulations found in staff report. And of note, if this development is to be recommended and approved for rezone, one of the stipulation is that they will build out the full street improvements of San Miguel, which would bring that street east to the eastern boundary, and make modifications to the existing traffic signal that currently is at San Miguel and Estrella Parkway, which currently has a 3-legged intersection configuration. They would need to upgrade that to a 4-leg. The applicant is here, does not have a presentation if it is not required, and I'm more than happy to address any zoning-related questions you might have.
Thank you, Christian. Are there any questions for staff? Vice Chairman Clymer.
You may not know this, but maybe throw me just a ballpark. How much more area in the Estrella area is there to be developed?
That is a great question. I will try to highlight that on the yellow map. Oh, I can kind of show you here. The Estrella boundary is approximately this north-south line. These are the custom homes when you enter Estrella right here. So the boundary of Estrella is effectively down here to Pecos Road alignment. So effectively everything west or east of Estrella Parkway, with the exception of these infill parcels here, is up for development. As well as the back end of Montecito when the Mountain View Drive, that circular drive through there, when that finally loops around, you'll see some platting come in for the rest of Montecito. Cantamilla's getting pretty close to build out, as is Lucero. That would complete Estrella North. Estrella, as a zoning and as kind of an entity, does own land south of there.
So several hundred acres.
Yes, absolutely.
And roughly how many units of single-family residential at build-out?
A lot. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it will more than double, it appears to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to find like the Estrella Mountain Ranch plan and trying to find a circulation element and struggled to find that. It was not intuitive on the website.
Yes.
But I just want to say it was like 60,000. I mean, it was a lot of units. When we first moved in, that was what I recall, something along those lines at build out. So we're not even close.
Or not even close.
I noticed that there were concerns about the fact that they're taking away commercial, they're taking away a school. Clearly the schools have the right to say whether they need the property or not. That's irrelevant here for us. But as far as commercial, isn't there opportunity in the future to alter that as well?
Absolutely. So to speak on commercial, there is about 7 acres that remains just east of the site, and Cotton Lane at current time is anticipated to continue south. So it would be off of Cotton Lane and San Miguel. There's also, if you look at the Mountain Ranch commercial area, you have major chunks of that center that are still undeveloped, as well as behind Elliott Market to the northwest. There are more than, I believe, 15 acres or more that's undeveloped behind the gas station and where I used to get pizza in high school. There's a bunch of commercial land still back there. So there's a lot of room just in the north section, as well as there's commercial opportunity in Montecito. And at that hard corner of Willis and Estrella in Cantamilla, there's commercial opportunity there. And those are just some that are on the immediate future, if you will, that are available.
I noticed you also suggested the extension of Cotton Lane. And I would imagine the circulation element would reflect that. Is there any idea as to what development might trigger that? I mean, at what point would we need that to pass through too? There were complaints about the traffic.
Great question. I believe at present it's when development along Cotton Lane is built. So none of this development at present touches Cotton Lane. I will tell you from a city standpoint, though, in fiscal year 25, improvements will be made to Estrella Parkway over the Gila River and the canals. And those city projects are currently slated to start in FY25, concluding in FY27. That would widen that existing 2-lane bridge to 3 lanes in each direction.
So there would not be a traffic study at any point in time until development actually fronts Cotton Lane, suggesting that we wouldn't be studying the level of service on Estrella Parkway until that time?
No, we do. With this rezoning, a traffic study was conducted. When the final preliminary plat comes in for this development, we will evaluate the traffic at the intersection. So one that's currently contemplated now is with San Miguel extending, a signal would be there, and we do traffic studies every time a development comes in. So there's a preliminary one at the rezoning, and then a final one would happen when we get to pre-plat.
And then I also noticed an expressed concern about loss of views. I've never lived anywhere where they actually preserve them, especially in a single-family development area like this, a planned community. Is that something here? I mean, we were already planned to have houses to the east of that anyway.
Correct. So currently the northern edge of the site is zoned single-family, so that can currently go up to 30 feet in height. The southern end, being that a portion of that is commercial today, you could have buildings as tall as 56 feet in height. So this rezoning actually reduces that. And another consideration is that schools are exempt from zoning. So the school height could go as high as they want it to go. Mm-hmm. The fact that this is now going to residential restricts that to 30 feet.
And then I had one last question.
Absolutely.
I noticed that the request, and if I understood your report, we're asking for something consistent to what the already rezoned component for the R16. So, but it did note that they were deviating in the width, coverage, garage setback, and rear yard setback, but providing an additional 5% of open space.
Correct. So if you look at the northern parcel, the change now that will be made to the northern parcel is an upping of the open space. The standards that were approved, the garage facing, the driveway, the width of those lots, that's an existing condition on the northern portion of the site. That is just extending south to the existing junior high school site and commercial site.
And is that a common trade that occurs? Like, is that percentage something we've seen at other developments?
We have. If there's if a developer requests a reduction in one area, we look at where they might need to enhance elements as well.
Okay, thanks, Christian.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Christian. Can you just talk about the concerns about losing the school area from the residents? I didn't know what specifically they were concerned about. Could you bring that up?
Certainly. I think the general concerns were that there might not be a junior high. That district in particular, the last I spoke with their administration, wasn't looking to pursue the junior high model at this time in Estrella. There are also some topographic concerns. When you think about building footprints for a school, it does become a little bit of a more challenging site for a junior high, being that there is some grade change. And another factor that the district indicated to me was that right in this area, south of the Presidio, there's a vacant parcel there that is currently zoned for an elementary K-8 school site. So there are school parcels that are still available in Estrella on just the west side. In addition, on the east side, there are sites zoned as well still for school facilities.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I interject just 1 second?
Of course.
Traffic question that Ms. Sampito had.
Go ahead.
As Christian elaborated, Cotton Lane will be extended in the future at a to-be-determined point. As you can imagine, the extension of Cotton Lane is a several multi-million, probably north of $100 million project, all going this entire length of Estrella. So it's a huge project that is not going to be hung on one 40-acre parcel of development. The city's transportation engineer and the deputy director of transportation, Chris Bridges, is constantly monitoring those traffic flows up that way. And what we will do is have to engage with the master developer of Estrella, Harvard, and as they're the managing owner entity representative, and really begin those conversations of what is the appropriate trigger. Because we can't just say, oh, suddenly now we need Cotton Lane extended, because as you can imagine, it's a huge project. And that has to be on the development side, programmed in their future budgets and things of that nature as well. So all of that can be constructed as it should and as it needs to in order to relieve traffic and provide another way in and out. And it just has to be appropriately communicated and timed, and we're not going to hang that on a 40-acre parcel of property because it's too small.
Makes sense. Thank you so much for clarification.
Yes, sir.
Let's see here. Being no other questions for staff, would the applicant like to address the commission at this time?
You have 10 minutes.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Andrew Yancey. I'm an attorney with Bergen, Frank, Smalley, and Oberholzer. For the record, we're at 4343 East Camelback Road in Phoenix. And we do represent Australia North, the master developer of this area. I do have some slides I can walk through if you want me to, Mr. Commissioner, or Mr. Chairman, excuse me. I think Christian's given a great presentation here. Really appreciate staff's work on this, their recommendation of approval. You know, there is a lot of land left in Australia, and I think Christian did a good job, you know, showing what we're looking at. My client purchased this property about 2 years ago, looking to continue the build out. We've been working on some more infill type parcels that are, you know, closer to the existing development. We are also looking at, you know, that larger swath of several thousand acres that's east of Australia Parkway. This is really an infill site in between Australia Parkway and that 330-foot utility easement that we're looking to build out consistent with the other residential subdivisions in the area. So I'm happy to answer any questions or walk through a presentation if you'd like.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Yancey at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any speaker cards on this topic?
I've not received any.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak on this specific topic? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of the request to rezone the property to Planned Area Development, PAD, with the property being zoned R16, Single Family Residential Zoning District with the PAD overlay as set forth in the draft ordinance number 2023-1591. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or a motion to recommend denial of the staff recommendation? I have a motion from Vice Chairman Clymer and a second from Commissioner Sambito to recommend approval of the staff recommendation. Oh, sorry. The floor is open for commission discussion.
Would the commission like to address anything, discuss anything on this topic? All right. Thank you.
Entered your votes. And okay. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the October 30th meeting.
Excellent. Agenda item number 4 is a rezone for Citrus and Indian School, and with that, I will open the public hearing. Planning Manager Steve Carreccia will present.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. I do have a rezoning for your consideration tonight for Citrus and Indian School. Where we're located, about 32 acres right here. Here's Citrus Road, Indian School Road, northeast corner right here. Surrounding this property, to the north, we have single-family residential within Abel Ranch. Wrapping around to the east, we have approved industrial property here. Wrapping around here to the south, that's the Microsoft data center facility and APS substation here. And across Citrus Road here to the west, this is the Sedea PAD, generally residential development. Right here at the hard corner is commercial. And I should point out here another significant feature of this area. This curved property line, not by accident, this is the Luke Air Force Base 65 decibel noise contour line. So per state statutes and city regulations, no residential development within inside the 65 decibel contour line. So that's why you see on the east side of that line, non-residential development. On the other side is where residential development could be appropriate. So as you see, that line kind of comes down, wraps around, cuts through Sadea, travels here to the west. So all the residential here, non-residential on the other side. The site will be accessed, we'll have 2 access points off of Citrus Road, 3 off of Indian School. I'll go into more detail on those in a little bit. A little bit of history on this piece. In a general plan, it's designated as business and commerce. And what that designation is for, areas for growth and development of the city's economic base. So you have commercial uses in there, neighborhood centers, retail centers as appropriate. You also have high-density residential that could be appropriate in business and commerce. Also, light industrial is considered appropriate within the business and commerce land use. And it's also, because of that 65 decibel noise contour for Luke running through there, it's also in their land use overlay. So it talks about preserving the mission of Luke and keeping residential development outside this area. November 2007, this 32 acres was part of a larger 41-acre rezone, ag and PAD to C2. That was for a development complementary to Able Ranch. It was a commercial center for that residential development. Since that time, the property has remained undeveloped. So tonight's request is to take 32 acres of those 41, change that from C2 to I1. The 9 acres at the hard corner will remain commercial C2. Purpose of the rezone, the applicant would like to develop a commercial center and business park on the property. Site plan that I'll show you in a little bit, 4 buildings ranging in size from 29,000 square feet up to 271,000 square feet. Within that I1 zone, the max building height is 50 feet, which, as Christian mentioned earlier, within the C2, it's 56 feet. So we're close to that, but a little under, capped at 50 feet. They're proposing a north-south alignment for the buildings with internalized truck courts, along with some drive aisles and access points, again, which I'll go over here in the next slide. And so this is the overall 41-acre piece. The 32 acres wraps around the 9 acres that will remain C2. And this use here, conceptual. There's nothing planned at this location at this time. What's shown here is the development plan that applicant would like to develop on the property. 4 buildings, again, from 270,000 square feet down to 29 or so. And how they have it developed, that north-south orientation, internalized truck courts here, access points surrounding. Going into the access a little bit, again, 3 proposed off of Indian School at this time. Full access here, restricted access the other 2. 2 off of Citrus, full access, and I believe this one is restricted here. As part of any development within the city, they would be required to complete their adjacent roadway improvements. So what would we would be requiring of this developer? Improving Indian School Road up to 3 lanes, major arterial here, landscaping, street lights, everything that would be required of roadway improvements. For Citrus Road, minor arterial, full completion of 2 lanes, curb gutter, sidewalks, landscaping, street lights. Again, within this area, a lot of development has occurred, a lot, especially with Microsoft. There's been a lot of roadway improvements in here in this area, closures. With the development of this property, they will improve their sections of the roadway, which should help circulation and such through this area. Also, pursuant to the traffic study for this project, this intersection here, Citrus and Indian School, that has met warrants for signalization, and the recommendation from the traffic study is that a signal is put in this intersection here. The developer will be required to pay their quarter share of the signal with this development. Staff did review this rezoning. We did review the development plan that was attached to it. Some of the concerns that we worked with the applicant on was with an I-1 zone. There's no minimum building requirements in terms of how many. They could show something and then develop something else, but the applicant was willing to stipulate to at least a minimum of 3 buildings, so you would not get one large building on the site. Right now, we're showing 4. The applicant said we'd likely do 4, but at a minimum, we'll do 3. And of those 3 or 4 buildings, the largest, this is the max size, to about 270,000 square feet. So again, you're not going to have one large warehouse distribution on this site, but 3 or 4 smaller buildings. Noise was a concern with any development going in the city, especially with Able Ranch to the north. So what the applicant and staff worked out, there'll be a large landscape buffer along the north property line, and I'll show that in more detail on the next slide. But that buffer will be increased to 50 feet in width with a double row of trees. Site plan is also showing wing walls, 13 feet in height, which will help keep the sound within the truck courts. Again, I'll show that in the next slide. We'll also move those wing walls. We'll stipulate that to another smaller building where they weren't originally shown, but through discussions with the applicant, they will add that to a smaller building there. Also, all truck parking, trailer storage, that will only occur within the truck courts. There'll be no parking within parking aisles or parking spaces for vehicles. It'll all be internalized within the courts. And so this is, let me go back a couple. This is the area I'm going to highlight on that slide, the colored slide, right here where you have the truck court opening up to a cul-de-sac within Able Ranch. So I'm going to highlight this section right here. And here's the cul-de-sac within the proposed Able Ranch community. Here's the entrance to that truck court. So what the applicant staff worked out is this buffer here will be extended to about here and extended to about here. And that'll be a 50-foot landscape buffer with a double row of trees. So all this parking will be removed in favor of landscaping, again, with a 50-foot width and a double row of trees. The applicant will also be doing wing walls here. So this is the wing wall here. It extends off the building here and here. That'll be 13 feet in height. It will also be required to look like part of the building and not just the wall, so it'll have multiple building materials and colors incorporated into that wall. And just to provide a point of reference, this subdivision, final plat was approved just last month. So it is moving forward, this subdivision here, and they had lots here just north of this proposed property. We're looking at about 160 feet from this lot line to about a point here, this dash line, and taking it from here to this lot about 175 feet. And these are pictures, some of the ideas, some of the inspirations that the developer is taking for their building. Multiple materials, colors. Again, looking at the zone, the height allowed in the zone, 50 feet would be the max. Currently, these buildings, what they're proposing conceptually is about a little over 40 at this time. So public participation process. The nearest existing residential lot to this property is within Sedea. It's about 620, 650 feet away, property line to property line. So with this application, Postcards were mailed to all property owners within 500 feet, but also the Sadea HOA, as well as Meritage, who is the developer of Able Ranch. Staff did receive 5 inquiries against this project from that notice. Points of opposition, again, these were some of the issues raised by the residents. For this hearing, we had legal ad posted in the paper. Property was posted both on Citrus and Indian School, as well as another postcard mailing. To date, two emails in favor of this proposal. None others were received against. So, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, after reviewing this rezoning, we do find it meets our criteria for a rezone. We do find that the proposed industrial zoning is consistent with the general plan, given the buffers and stipulations that are attached to this proposal. We find it consistent with the Luke-compatible land use overlay, that it will forward the mission of Luke Air Force Base. As such, we are recommending approval of this item, subject to the stipulations in the draft ordinance. Mr. Chairman, if this item does move forward tonight, it would be heard next Monday, October 30th at 5 p.m. before the City Council. But that concludes my Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Available for questions. The applicant is also here with a presentation or can just answer questions.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions for staff?
I just wanted to understand, when we introduced the project, it was referenced as rezone for commercial / I-1. When you reference the commercial, is that the existing corner that's already there? Well, that's already zoned commercial? Or is some of these 4 buildings potentially going to have a commercial use to them?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, my comments particularly look at this 9 acres here that's commercial that could develop with commercial uses. This would be going to I-1, a hard zone I-1, so
Okay.
this would be industrial here.
It came across as it was not a part, so I wanted to understand if there were commercial uses that could be in the others. Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions for staff? Steve, can you guess and why this particular area, which has been commercial for a long time? I mean, I think based on the previous slide, it was 2007. Is that correct? Why has it never taken off as a commercial area? And why would it, I mean, just stipulating, what do you think is the issue with this particular area? Why would it thrive as industrial as opposed to commercial?
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I could hazard a guess, but I imagine the applicant and the owner could probably give a much better answer than I could, if I could defer that to them.
Okay. All right. Would the applicant like to address?
10 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Ed Bull, 1850 North Central. I'm here on behalf of the property owner Southwest Next. From Southwest Next with me this evening are Nico Howard and also Michaela Forrest. We have other consultants and others from my office here as well, if you'd like to ask questions of any of them. I don't know if you have speaker cards for this case or not, so if you do, then I probably ought to ask if I could go to my presentation and touch on some things, including a couple questions that were asked by your commission of staff.
Absolutely.
I think the PowerPoint may help get through some of those things.
You got it, John?
First of all, I agree with everything that Steve said. We agree with everything in staff's report. We accept all 27 of the staff recommended stipulations. We hope your commission agrees. We do request approval in accordance with staff's report. The site has already been described by Steve. I will try not to dwell on anything that he said. As indicated, this this corner, how do I highlight the corner? Like this. This C2 zoning is not changing, so it remains commercial. We hope that it will be commercially viable. There's been efforts to market this property for commercial development for many years, and those efforts have been with large brokerage houses who work in the commercial sector, and it has not been successful. I will tell you what we believe some of the reasons are. One of those reasons, and we are pro-Luke Air Force Base, that isn't the point.
Sure.
But one of the reasons that we believe commercial is challenged is commercial retailers look at demographics within a 360-degree trade area. Because of the Luke noise contours, as was indicated, this particular contour is the 65. We are on the noisy side of the 65 line. In addition to that, you remember from other course cases that Goodyear honors the graduated density concept, which says for a half a mile within the 65 noise contour, density is limited to like 0 to 2 units per acre and so on and so forth. So as a retailer looks at this site, and having had the opportunity to represent a variety of grocers and other retailers over the years, they knew and have been reminded that they need a 360-degree trade area. There's not going to be any residential over here. The residential that is to the west, northwest of the 65 noise contour, because of the graduated density concept, which is encouraged by Luke and honored by the city of Goodyear, has naturally limited density in this area. Some of you were on the commission when we worked on Able Ranch a few years ago and dealt with Luke and the graduated density concept and so on. Mm-hmm. The other aspect that I think is a factor is there's simply better sites in the city of Goodyear for commercial retail. I think another factor is those of you who drive Indian School Road knows that there are huge power poles all along the north side of Indian School Road, huge power lines associated with them. You can't see it, but the stipulations confirm that there will also need to be a wide in the north-south direction, drainage easement that runs along the north side of Indian School Road. All of that pushes those retailers back off the street. Retailers typically want to be close to the street for the visibility. There's probably other factors as well, but I can tell you that Nico and his dad, prior to Nico and others, have tried to make commercial work on this site, and it did not work, and there is no indication that it would ever work. Going further, I mean, this is overall is a 40-plus acre site. That is a huge amount of retail in today's world. Back when it was zoned, in those days, sometimes we were doing 4-corner commercial with 2 or 3 grocery stores at different quadrants. That's not the world that we live in, and I don't see that old world coming back in the sense of that amount of brick and mortar retail occurring at a given intersection. If that answers your question,
Thank you, Ed.
you're very welcome. Going on, this site is, as you know, it's zoned commercial, but it isn't working. This is the overall plan.
5 minutes.
Obviously, I didn't hear. Okay. We purposefully excluded this acreage. It might be 9 gross acres. I don't know, 4 net acres here. We know that if this becomes, it's generally shown as what could be a gas station and C-store, but we pointed out in our narrative, and I think staff did in their report as well, recognizing some neighbors would have a concern with that. That requires a use permit, which would require another public notice and public hearing process. But we were asked to show something generally on that site as to how it could work, and we needed that for purposes of identifying driveway cuts and other kinds of things as well. On this site plan, purposefully also, it transitions in terms of building size and potential intensity, it transitions from west to east. As you remember from a prior exhibit that Steve had up on the screen, this industrial development to the north to the east is under construction. There's a bunch of industrial development to the east is now under construction, approved and under construction. There's substantial industrial to the north, the development to the south, and so on. So this is an industrial area that this site happens to be located in. We also felt, though, it was appropriate to transition from west to east, where if there are larger buildings on this site, they'd be over here on the east, not over here to the west, adjacent to what happens to be a commercial component of Sadea. It's not built yet, but it is the commercial corner of Sadea that's over here to the west. These are much smaller buildings, likely less height involved, probably a more office-y appearance from the street side and so on. As we go on to the next slide, and Steve explained a lot of this with respect to appropriate buffers that are being provided, and this is a less artsy version of the same exhibit that Steve had on the board a few minutes ago. I wasn't aware of the distances shown on the plat. I think Steve indicated that these distances are really now 160 to 175 feet. I knew they were at least 140 or more. There's stipulations, as you know, in your packet about the possibility of a perimeter wall being built along here. It may be built as a part of Able Ranch, we understand, back in off of this property line. If not, we'll build a wall. But bottom line, there is tremendous buffering in terms of distance, multiple rows of trees, potential wall, and other kinds of things occurring, in addition to the wing walls that Steve was talking about occurring here at the north end of the truck court. This is a cross-section that shows some of those distances and so on. This showing the wing wall. It's just two different cuts through here. This one where the double row of trees is, that one further to the east or further to the west where there will not be homes adjacent to it, but still you're seeing 100 feet or so between the building and the wall, another 40, 50, 60, 75 feet before you get to a residential lot. That was all very purposeful, worked carefully with staff to make sure that this not only met but exceeded the city's requirements for separations and buffering. We also had a gentleman who you may remember from other cases by the name of Tony Sola, who is a long-established and I believe well-respected acoustical consultant, take a look at the buffering and transition that was occurring along the north. And he concluded, as you can see here, that the noise level with all the things that are being done, if these buildings are built this way with wing walls and additional distance and this and that, the noise levels here in future Able Ranch would actually be quieter than the average noise level elsewhere in the state.
You have 1 minute.
You've seen this. We believe this makes tremendous sense. We know commercial doesn't work. We know it's not going to work. We hope we can make it work on the hard corner itself. We know that if that comes back as to be a gas station and C-store, I think also if it's a drive-through restaurant or a restaurant with drive-through, it still has to come back through the processes and so on. But there's tremendous benefits here. There's been tremendous attention paid to notices, to compatibilities, in addition to the outreach that Steve talked about, and I can discuss this more if you want. We went above and beyond the city's normal requirements by doing some door-to-door and responding to this and to that, and are very pleased that one of the gentlemen, as Steve mentioned, who was previously opposed, when he took advantage of an offer to meet with Nico and Tom Bilstein, who was doing door-to-door work for us, that gentleman changed his mind and decided this is the right thing on this property, and he changed from opposition to support. We're willing to talk to anybody, anytime about it, and provide them all of this and additional information. We have a typo here. That should be STIPs 1 through 27. We accept all of them. We request your approval.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you for answering my question about just the history of how much work you've tried to do with this property and make it commercial. It's just not working. I mean, 2007 is a long time. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right. I know there are speaker cards.
Correct.
Let's begin that.
Yes. I have several speaker cards. Just so everyone's aware, each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The screens will let you know how much time you have left. Before you begin to speak, identify yourself by clearly stating for the record your name and if you are a Goodyear resident. Randy Higgs.
Good evening, Mr. Higgs.
Hello. I couldn't really hear what you said I had to do. My name's Randy Higgs. I live in
Yeah.
Sedella
You have 3 minutes.
subdivision, and I'm opposed to this changing. And reason B is we're over kind of in the northwest corner of Goodyear in the forgotten city part of the city, basically. And we're already dealing with the commercial aspect with the warehouses. If you're familiar with Camelback, down to the prison, okay, down Citrus from 303 west, not east, west. We've got 18 major warehouses that's been built in there in the last couple of years, and 2 going in now. And we're talking massive warehouses. We're not talking little ones. And then when you put that inside with across the street on the east side and stuff, the warehouses that's going in, and on the north side of Camelback and that, we're stuck out there in the middle of nowhere. We're already stuck right now. I mean, theoretically, we're part of Buckeye. I mean, we get forgot all the time out there. And I just want to put my 2 cents in. I'm opposed to it. It's commercial right now. We don't need it turned to light industrial. We're getting plenty with the commercial trucks now and truck traffic. Amazon and that is circus. I mean, we got them all, and it's just going to get worse. And if we go with light industrial, who knows what will go in there, you know. And the promise of we won't put nothing in there with smokestacks and stuff, I am buying. I can't get my road fixed. It's only been 17 years, folks, to get out onto Camelback from Sedella. Only 17, but don't worry. I'll die for it's fixed, but that's beside the point. But I'm opposed to the corner, the change on the zoning. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you for your thoughts, Mr. Higgs.
Charles Summer.
Good evening, Mr. Summer.
Hi, Charles Summer. I am a Goodyear resident in Sedella, and I was that guy, I guess, that originally was opposed to it and have changed my mind. Reason being, I was opposed to it for the same reason that Randy just stood up and said, you know, all the big buildings, et cetera. But when I looked at what they had to work with, I realized that there's no way that commercial is going to go in there. I just don't see it ever happening. I'd like to get the roads done, and I know that in order to have that happen, they've got to develop that area. It's no longer going to be a nice big area for fields and greenery anymore, so that's gone. We need to get it developed. And I originally thought that they were going to stick some gigantic warehouse like Amazon, but the way they're stepping it down, to me, looks like a viable option. And I think it's not the best thing. It's not what I would write out that I absolutely want there. But all things being considered, I think it's the best we're going to get probably in my lifetime, and I'd sure like to see the roads done. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thank you for your input, Mr. Summer.
You bet.
Maureen Killian.
Good evening, Mrs. Killian.
Good evening, Maureen Killian, resident of Goodyear, also a resident of Sedella. I've heard all the feedback as well, and I can appreciate the hardship they have to develop this as a commercial property. But I would like you to consider the hardship we have, as again was previously explained. We are the forgotten part of Goodyear. We just are. Those roads, we keep telling us that they're going to be fixed. It's been years. I mean, if we're waiting on a developer, do they have a time frame? When? When will this happen? Instead, we really do. You force us to spend our tax dollars in other cities. We drive to Buckeye. We drive up the 303 to Surprise. It's easier. And nobody in the city of Goodyear seems to care about us, but you're glad to take our real estate taxes. So there's a concern that, again, we're going to be ignored. What does the city of Goodyear want to be? Warehouses everywhere? Are we okay with residents? Do we want jobs? Are the jobs at these warehouses the jobs that are going to keep me in the city? No. I've worked in Tempe for 22 years. I drive the 10 every day, 40 miles, for a 6-figure job because you don't have any here. And this warehouse isn't going to bring me one. And I understand growth is inevitable, but the city doesn't seem to take into account what the residents want, specifically the residents of Sadea, because again, we're the northwest corner, no one's looking at us. And when you change zoning from commercial to light industrial, you're solidifying a loss of sales tax. Again, we're forced to drive somewhere else to spend our tax dollars. Citrus nor Indian School is prepared for the level of truck traffic warehouses will bring. You cannot tell me that a warehouse will bring less truck traffic than retail. Makes no sense. Indian School has been under construction for well over a year. It still isn't complete. Citrus is barely maintained, is not built for commercial truck traffic. And if this is the kind of infrastructure support we as residents can expect from the city, you can't question why we would oppose this. To be clear, I'm equally unhappy with how the city's handling it as how the developer is. Neither one of you seem to be concerned about the residents of Sadea. And I understand the Planning Commission has recommended the approval of this, but I'd like just to be on the record to say, absolutely not. Again, I didn't buy a house there to find out that I'd be surrounded by warehouses.
Thank you for your input, Ms. Killian.
Ken Hubble.
Hi.
You mean Mr. Hubble?
Ken Hubble with Sadea Community. I'm a Goodyear resident. Mr. Chairman, some of the bullet points that I had that concerns me with the rezoning request. Noise has been talking about, okay, the truck noise is going to be increased. The pollution, let me talk about the pollution. Not only the pollution from the industrial trucks, also from the light and the noise. It really concerns me about the pollution. As everybody knows, the traffic, the increased traffic on Indian School is going to be horrible. I understand they're proposing 3 lanes, with one being a turning lane. But also, if you take a look at what they proposed with 2 access points on Citrus, which backs up right up against the Sadea community, and also it's going to be right south of the Able Ranch. No one's talked about property values too much, but I believe that our property values in Sadea is going to be devalued with the amount of warehouses that's really encroaching on the development and where we live. Quality of life is going to be affected. No one likes to live near an industrial environment. If you take a look around 303, there's not a whole lot of developments right up against the large warehouses. There's a reason for that. Now we're just getting further into the residential area for that, and that concerns me how it's going to affect the quality of life. If you take a look from a Goodyear standpoint in the general plan, take a look at the community needs. What does Goodyear really want to be recognized for? A community of warehouses, or a good community to raise a family and to live and have a good quality of life? That's what really concerns me, is that this could negatively affect that. Do we want more warehouses? If you take a look around 303, we've got plenty. As the gentleman earlier mentioned, going on I-10, right off of I-10 there, we're going to have more gigantic warehouses. So I understand that warehouses may be a lot of tax. There may be a lot of tax benefits with that. But it really concerns me that we're going to be known as a community west of the 303, a community of warehouses. So I'm going to suggest that we not approve this and to keep the general plan zoning. Take a look at what the original vision was for the general plan, and it was zone commercial. Why do we go against that? Because now we want to go light industrial and put more industrial buildings on that site. So I would ask that we not approve this request. We're against it.
Thank you, Mr. Hubble.
Parker Crehan.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Can you I want to make sure I say your last name correctly. What is it again?
Yes, Crehan. Parker Crehan.
Thank you for coming up here.
No problem. Yeah, I'm Parker Crehan. I'm a Goodyear resident. A lot of my points have kind of already been brought up already. One thing I wanted to say, bring up is the noise issue. I know we learned a lot about sound buffering and things like that, but these things aren't happening in a vacuum. There's multiple warehouses, a lot of trucks, you can build all the wing walls you want, but with the Air Force Base and the warehouses that are already there, I feel like it's just a problem that's compounding on top of itself, and it's just going to continue to get worse. I doubt this will be the last warehouse that gets proposed for Goodyear, so I don't see it being a problem that'll be solved in the future. Another thing I wanted to mention is the light pollution that was brought up already. I feel like that's something that should be addressed and should be at least considered. I myself am a photographer, so I'm out there at night taking pictures of stuff and taking pictures of the stars, and it's something that's affected greatly by warehouse lights and something I already have to go further out, and I feel like that's just another problem that will just continue to get worse. I don't have that much more to say, but I just wanted to be on the record as well. Thank you.
Mr. Crehan.
Kaylee Crehan.
Good evening, Mrs. Crehan. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. My name is Kaylee Crehan. I'm also a Goodyear resident in Sadea. I was actually born and raised in Goodyear, so kind of rare. My family is also, I'm a fourth generation Goodyearian, so I'm very proud of Goodyear, and I think it's really special. My family's farmers, and I've seen really the change in Goodyear. Sorry, I'm nervous. I don't like talking.
You're doing great.
So I've seen a lot of the change, and I really think that we're doing a great job of building a community that is better developed, and with the Goodyear Square, I think those are the right directions that we should be going. And I think warehouses are important too, but in their own area, I think it should be kind of secluded and not really merged with the community. So I would like to oppose the rezoning. I feel like I want to echo everything that my neighbors said, but we definitely bought the house knowing that commercial was going to be there. And let's see what else hasn't been addressed. I also just don't understand the reason that the warehouses can't be built in existing light industrial areas, especially near the other warehouses where this patch of land could be developed into commercial in the future. I know we mentioned it's not really viable, but I think in time it will be viable once there is the residents to support the commercial. So that could just be a few years away, and it's unfortunate that they bought the land really early, but I'm sure they bought it very cheap early on, and they can wait until there's residents to support that. And I think that commercial provides a lot of benefits to the residents nearby, whereas industrial will not provide benefits to the city or the residents in the close area. That's really it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Crehan. And thank you for being in Goodyear so long.
Thank you.
That was the last speaker card I've received. Are there any others? Okay. Okay. That's fine. You can come up and speak, and then I'll put a speaker card up, and if you don't mind filling it out, just so we can put you in the record.
Hello.
My name is Fleur Hart. I've been a resident of Goodyear for almost 5 years now. We previously had a home in Estrella by the ballpark, and we moved to Sedaya because it was more quiet. With moving to Sedaya, it was great space, very nice home. We deal with the traffic on Indian School and Citrus every day. Not only that, part of the reason we bought the home is because we said, okay, well, some industrial, some commercial is coming here. Great. Now that's going to go away. And my question for the developer is, how do you propose, if this is to move forward, not that I agree with it, to deal with the traffic that that development is going to cause? Because as it is right now, we can't stand it. She said it, and everybody agrees. Thank you. Sorry I didn't feel card.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, I have in the corner there. You can come on up.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you for listening to us. I appreciate it. My name is Linda Perrone. I do live in Sedaya as well. Been out here about 4 years and moved down here from Surprise to what I was hoping would be a more vibrant community, only to find out that I'm now surrounded by warehouses. And really where we are, obviously a lot of things have already been said, but we are so limited on anything that's convenient for the neighbors and the residents out there. And there's plenty of residents now with all the new communities north of us, in Buckeye on Camelback over there. There's plenty of people to support commercial. And my neighbors will agree with me. If anybody goes to that Fry's out there, we can't even get groceries. You can't even get a bottle of soda. The shelves are bare out there. We could use some neighborhood conveniences. We don't have a pharmacy. We don't have a bank. We don't have any decent restaurants to eat. You've got all these people that live there, all these people that work in the warehouses. We have no neighborhood conveniences. Gosh, we could use a neighborhood Walmart or something like that over there, a nice little grocery store. Because Fry's just can't handle all the people between Buckeye, the new growth, and all the new homes that are out there. So I think now that the community has turned and we've got so much more new residential out there, that there's viability for commercial now. 5 years ago, maybe not, but we didn't also have all those homes that are out there either. There was nothing. So now I really feel that I'm against it. Or if they do light industrial, the thing I would question maybe, like in Surprise, there's a light industrial park where there's businesses in it, small businesses, automotive shops, dance studios, those types of businesses, not a warehouse per se, but actual businesses that are in there. There's a multitude of them. I think there's auto body shops, but you know, like a commercial light industrial type of thing where the kids can go to a dance studio or the neighbors could, you know, utilize business for our families. That is something I would consider in a light industrial type of environment as opposed to just warehouses or, you know, things where we can't benefit from. We'd like something to benefit. We're like the stepchild out there. I'm sorry. I agree. It's like we're forgotten, you know, we're Goodyear, but we're giving all our money to Buckeye because we're going down to Jackrabbit to shop down there now. Because we have nothing. And we would like to have a pharmacy, a bank, a bakery, a nice place to eat, you know, things to bring our kids to, close to us, and we're okay with commercial, but not light industrial. We've had enough of it. I mean, we're getting all these warehouses jammed down our throats. We understand it, but we're not happy about it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Perrone.
Thank you. Jean, can you? Thank you.
Is there a way for Ed to come up and speak on to respond? Thank you, Chris, for coming to my aid.
So if there's no other public speakers, Mr. Chairman, according to the list and the call that Alyssa will do, then there'll need to be a motion either of approval or denial. Then it could be the commission discussion, and if the commission wanted to ask the applicant a particular question, you have the opportunity of doing so at that time.
Thank you, Chris. Perfect. Perfect answer. Appreciate it. Anybody else in the audience would like to speak on this topic? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. And will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of the request to rezone approximately 32.43 acres north and east of the northeast corner of Citrus Road and Indian School Road from the C2 General Commercial Zoning District to the I1 Light Industrial Zoning District as set forth in the draft of ordinance number 2023-1588. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or a motion to recommend denial of the staff recommendation? If you want to do a motion for recommendation of the staff recommendation, it's on the screen. I have a motion from Vice Chairman Clymer. And a second from Commissioner Wang. The floor is open for commission discussion.
All right, let's discuss what we've heard from the wonderful people that came out tonight. Yes, sir.
And just make sure that you turn your mic on. Red is dead.
I guess I'll go down the line and see if
I don't know that I have anything to add. I think that the presentation between staff and developer were pretty thorough. I appreciate the comments from the community, but I don't think I have anything to add to it.
Thank you. Commissioner Sambito? No. Vice Chairman Clymer? No. Commissioner Booth? Commissioner Wang? Pretty straightforward. I would like to echo something I've heard over and over again from the people out in the audience tonight, and that is there was a theme that you did feel forgotten. You have felt you have not been listened to, you have not been treated fairly. The word stepchild came up. So please know that I have heard that, and we have heard that. We're going to look at this and we are just allowing whatever we say goes next to the city council, and they will determine. And please come out for them as well and share your exact feelings that you had tonight with them. So, being no other discussion from us. Okay.
Please enter your vote.
Please enter your votes.
Waiting on me. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the October 30th meeting.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. And if I may, recognize him out of order. If any neighbor who is here tonight wants to talk with any of us or meet with any of us, we're willing to do that at any time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's take a 5-minute recess to allow people that would like to leave for the evening to go, collect ourselves up here, and get ready for the next agenda item. With that, thank you.
We're going to resume the meeting. If you'd like to step out in the hall, you're able to talk, but we need silence, please. Excuse me, sir?
We will resume. Item number 5. Agenda item number 5 is a rezone for Goodyear Municipal Complex. And with that, I will open the public hearing.
Good evening, Chairman Gish and Commissioners. I'm Mayor Goldrich, City Planner, and this is a rezone for the Goodyear Municipal Complex, or GMC. The project site is at the southeast corner of 145th Avenue and Van Buren Street. It's approximately 17.6 acres, and the current zoning is Light Industrial Park, or I-1. The I-1 zoning was established in 2004. Shortly after that, the north end of the site was developed as a private business park, and the city leased office space within that business park. And then the city purchased the property in 2012, and it added the telecom building and the police administration building between 2012 and 2015. As of today, there are still multiple city departments at the site, including the courthouse, engineering, and the police and fire administrative functions. Additionally, Franklin Pierce University leases space in the complex, and the Goodyear Wellness Center is now out there as well. On September 11th, Alice Cooper's Solid Rock Teen Centers got a approved lease from City Council to take over the majority of the former library building. The current uses at the site, as well as the upcoming teen center, do not conform to the existing I-1 zoning. Our proposal tonight is to rezone the site to Public Facilities District, or PFD, with a PAD, or Planned Area Development Overlay. The PFD zoning would permit the city uses that are out there at this time, while the overlay would permit colleges and universities, community centers, and offices, both general and medical, which will cover the other uses that are on the site or proposed to be on the site. Since there are no residences within 500 feet of the project site, we did an alternative citizen review where we sent notification postcards to neighbors within 500 feet. That was on September 22nd. We've received no responses to those postcards. Additionally, we posted a sign at the property and published a legal ad. And again, no inquiries or comments on those notifications. And staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend stipulated approval of the rezone. And I do want to point out that in the project PAD document that was attached to your staff report, if you look in the additional regulations specific section, there's 2 items listed there about acoustical soundproofing and outdoor activities. We're asking to remove those. They're no longer applicable because they conflict with a lease that legal has prepared for the new Solid Rock Center. And I'm available for any questions that you have.
All right, thank you, Ann. Are there any questions for staff? All right. Are there any speaker cards?
I have not received any.
Okay. Would anybody in the audience like to speak on this topic? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of the request to rezone an approximately 17.6 acre site located at the southeast corner of West Van Buren Street and North 145th Avenue from I-1 Light Industrial Park to the Planned Area Development, PAD, zoning district with underlying zoning of PFD, Public Facilities District, with a PAD, Planned Area Development overlay. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or a motion to recommend denial of the staff recommendation? I have a motion from Commissioner Wang, a second from Commissioner Booth. The floor is open for commission discussion.
Are there any discussion? No? Okay. All right.
Please enter your vote. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the October 30th meeting.
Agenda item number 6 is a special use permit for Fusero Land Reclamation Project. With that, I will open the public hearing. Senior Planner Ann Dolmage will present.
Yes, thank you again. It is ye for this item as well. This is a special use permit for the Fusaro Land Reclamation Extension. This project site is located at the southwest corner of 158th Avenue and Roosevelt Street. It's approximately 29.4 acres in size. The majority of the site is zoned agricultural or AG. There is a small piece at the northeast corner that falls within the Canyon Trails Phase 1 planned area development with PAD zoning. Historically, this site was used as a borrow pit, providing fill material for the construction of Interstate 10. It's no longer used for that purpose. Fusaro, a land reclamation company, purchased the property in 2016. The following year, the city amended the zoning ordinance to allow inert material landfills to facilitate land reclamation of public project borrow pits in any zoning district with SUP approval. In that same year, Fusaro obtained an SUP to fill in the borrow pit. That SUP was valid for 5 years, so it has expired. So they are back to obtain a new SUP to continue the work. To date, Fusaro has cleaned up existing materials in the site and removed materials that cannot be used as fill. Trucks are importing materials from construction projects around the valley to fill in the pit. Only inert, non-hazardous materials are allowed. When the deposited material approaches maximum fill, an evaluation of the final cover plans will be conducted. The applicant has indicated to staff in the application materials that this could take 5 to 7 years. We have proposed a stipulation to cap the term of the SUP at 7 years. They did indicate to us yesterday they may actually need 10 years. So should this run over 7 years, they will need to obtain a new SUP at that time. A neighborhood meeting was held here at City Hall on July 6th. We did have 3 people in attendance, all neighbors of the project. They're in support of continuing the reclamation of the borrow pit. And additionally, we posted signage at the property and published a legal ad with dates for this public hearing. And we've received no other inquiries on the project. Continued reclamation of the site will restore it for future uses that are more compatible with the residential neighborhood around it. And the SUP adheres to zoning ordinance evaluation criteria with the recommended stipulations of approval. And staff recommends that Planning and Zoning Commission recommends stipulated approval of the SUP. And the applicant is here tonight and does have a presentation that he can give you. In addition, I'm available for any comments.
Thank you, Ann. Are there any questions for staff on this? And I'm not sure if this would be more for the applicant, but they say 10 years, we're giving him 7. What is causing this to take so long to fill? I mean, I remember when we first brought Fusaro in, and I know that they cleaned up the fence, and we're very thankful that they did that by blocking that off. But what is the reason? Do you know?
That's a very good question, Chairman. I know that the daily number of trucks proposed to come at this time is lower than what the original SUP allowed for, so I think it's less traffic to the site, but there may be other reasons too, and we can bring the applicant up to explain that.
Thank you. Would the applicant please come up and address the commission? The applicant will have 10 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. For your record, my name is Brian Greathouse. I'm here on behalf of Fusaro. Donnie Fetters with Fusaro is right behind me. To answer, I'll forego my presentation. I think it's pretty straightforward what we're asking for to extend that special use permit. The pit's filled about 40% today.
Okay.
The amount of material coming into the site is based on the marketplace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when a big construction project kicks off and there's inert material that's spit out of that project, Donnie takes it in. The more material, the better, because he can finish the project quicker, and he wants to make this a usable piece of property that can be developed as something more beneficial to the community than an empty pit. So it's a function of the marketplace. if you guys have any dirt, he's accepting. And he's trying to find as much material as he can and as fast as he can to fill the pit.
Mr. Grayhouse, how much have you had to remove? Like, have you had to remove a lot as opposed to accept? I remember saying that there had to be kind of a abatement of things that you couldn't take in.
Donnie Fetters, we've had to remove very little.
Okay.
The stuff that was dumped there illegally before I acquired it, prior to 2015, some of that had to be removed right away, and I did that in the first 2 years before we were able to obtain our first SUP on that. So very little.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the market slowing down, not as much building. I mean, from where we're sitting, it feels like all we're doing is building. So hopefully it will be filled up soon. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody in the audience like to speak on this topic? Thank you. And with that, I will close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Recommend approval of the request for a special use permit to continue the existing Fasaro land reclamation project on an approximately 29.4 acre parcel, subject to compliance with stipulations. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or a motion to recommend denial of the staff recommendation? I have a motion from Commissioner Sambito, a second from Commissioner Wang. Open for discussion.
Any discussion? No? All right. All right.
Okay. Please enter your vote. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the October 30th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Agenda item number 7 is a special use permit for a private fraternal club. Public hearing. Contract planner, Mr. Williams, will present.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, David Williams, contract planner here for the City of Goodyear. Project before you this evening is a special use permit for the Moose Lodge. The request this evening is for that special use permit, but we also have a couple of additional things they're asking for, one of which is a 5-year approval period for construction. Normally, we see a 2-year on special use permits for them to get moving forward. This one has some complications in that it's tied, their ability to move forward is tied to ADOT's ability to move forward with the plans, getting them to 100%, starting construction for the Loop 303. They're also requesting 2 cargo containers for storage during the construction period only. Now, the location is located south of Yuma Road on the west side of Cotton Lane. You can kind of see it right here as we're zoomed out just a little bit. I want to point out right here, open dirt to the south. That'll come into play in just a moment. But it's basically a quarter mile south of Yuma. It's an old building. It's been there for many, many years. The site is zoned as C1. It's a 3-acre site. Now, the structure was built here in 1958, but the structure didn't start off life here. The structure started off life on one of the Luke Auxiliary Airfields and became an airplane hangar for a local crop duster in 1958. That's why I pointed out the dirt strip to the south. It was originally a small historic farming airport. So went from airplane hangar to Moose Lodge since 1958. Just got a few pictures just so everybody can kind of see the existing conditions that are out there. Again, very typical of a 1940s military Quonset hut. They do have a little sign up against the street there. There are some temporary road improvements that have also gone in recently to address some safety issues that were identified by Public Works. Here we have just the side and the rear of the building. And then I wanted to show this just to show proximity to the neighbors. This drainage culvert here ties to a Maricopa County Flood Control District drainage channel. There's an underground drainage channel right there. And I'll point that out on the site plan just so everybody can orient themselves. But that is located west of the current building. It's actually right about where I was standing taking the photograph for this picture. The existing building, as part of this request, is going to be removed. It is basically right where the 303 right-of-way is going to go. Their proposed building is a two-story, about 6,600 square foot building. They're proposing about a 1,900 square foot outdoor patio on the east side of the building, the freeway side. They'll have meeting spaces, bar, restaurant, associated storage rooms. And the site improvements with this, which is really going to be the big leap to the future here, is the site improvements will all comply with the current codes, not what we saw in 1958 in the county when everything was built, but that'll include a new driveway entrance, paved parking, screening, landscaping, sidewalks. They're going to have a few covered parking spaces as well, trash enclosures, typical of modern construction, what we would expect to see today. The site access is severely limited because of the 303. This is a right-in, right-out only condition. They don't have any ability to come up here to the north to try to tie in with that existing condition. So coming in, people will have to go north of the site, do a U-turn at an ADOT approved location, come back down to pull in here, and then to go northbound, they'll have to do the same thing. They'll have to exit southbound, make that U-turn, and go back up. The building elevations, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over these, but it does have a maximum height on the parapet of 32 feet. Maximum height for the district is 30 feet with a 5-foot overage for parapets. So we're coming in at about 27 feet-ish to the primary roof line. Here's a couple of the other sides of the building. What I wanted to show is putting it a little better in context is the renderings that the architect did. Now, the one thing I want to point out here, the one thing that isn't on the plan is the existing cell tower. That's going basically where this square is, or it exists rather, where the square is right here. So this proposal does not change the approvals and construction, everything that's already in place for the cell tower. It will remain. As we look around the building here, this would be the street side, so this is what you would see when you come in. This would be the side to the west with the neighborhood. And then just kind of a close-up of the materials being used, horizontal standing seam metals. We've got some stone work that's going on this. It is a metal frame building, so these are faux finishes that are being done. And a large covered area. This is that covered event area, outdoor patio that I discussed before. Now the special use permit evaluation criteria, there's a few things here. Is it desirable or necessary for public convenience or welfare? Will it be harmonious and compatible with the uses? Is it in conformance with the adopted general plan? And that it will not be detrimental to surrounding properties due to impact on the circulation, excessive noise or light, scale, hours of operation, inadequate sized parcel to provide adequate buffers, or just inconsistent with the surrounding development character or architecture. The citizen review and public hearing processes were followed. Community meeting was held on August 22nd. We had about 35 people attend the meeting. All of them were with the Moose Lodge. They were all very excited to see the project going forward. We did do all of our traditional notices. There was a sign posted on the property for the neighborhood meeting. Notification was made through all of our traditional channels. We have not received any public comment on this other than the members of the Moose Lodge that were in attendance. For the public hearings, notice was mailed out to everybody within the 500 feet. Site was posted, it's been in the newspaper, it's been on the website, so we've met all of our legal requirements for that. And again, I did not receive any public comment related to this particular case at all. Now, the recommendation, staff is recommending approval of this subject to the Planning Commission stipulations today if you wish to make any changes to that, and we do believe that it complies with all city requirements. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions. And they weren't planning on making a presentation just for brevity this evening, but they're happy to answer any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Are there any questions? Okay. Would the applicant like to address the commission?
No question.
All right. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Okay. The only thing that will be sad is the fact that the old hangar is going to go away. Now that I know it was actually a hangar and an ag airport, I didn't realize that in 1958.
Yep.
That's kind of crazy. But.
It was rather unique. That was a piece of history I found out when we were actually taking the photographs the other day. Someone local grew up. I happened to run into him at the Moose Lodge. They remember when it was a hangar. They were able to fill in some of the gaps that we don't have in the official records. So it was kind of neat to hear the stories of that. So.
Definitely. All right. Are there any speaker cards?
I have not received any.
Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing. Will the secretary please read the staff recommendation?
Yes. Sorry. Why is it doing that? Recommend approval of the request for a special use permit for a private club on an approximately 3-acre parcel, Zone C1, Neighborhood Commercial, located at 1572 South Cotton Lane, the property, subject to stipulations. Is there a motion for the staff recommendation or a motion to recommend denial of the staff recommendation? I have a motion from Commissioner Wang, second from Commissioner Booth. Open for discussion.
Any discussion? All right.
Okay. Please enter your vote. Motion passes. Recommendation of approval will be forwarded to City Council for the October 30th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Agenda item number 8 is the general plan public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Planning Manager Steve Correcchia will present.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, it's a pleasure to bring this item before you tonight. It's been about a year and a half's work, a lot of staff time, excellent work from our consultant, our citizen stakeholders, and also our general plan committee, which I should note we have a member now on the commission and a member now. She left. She was here. Where did Elena go? I was going to call her out as a dedicated member of the general plan committee. But tonight's meeting is one of two before the commission. This one here at City Hall, the next one at our former City Hall. Pursuant to state law, we must have two different geographical locations for public comment. Tonight we're asking, Matt's going to provide another great presentation before you. Tonight we're asking just if there was any public comment that you would take that tonight. Next week's meeting is when you will actually make a recommendation on the general plan.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Hello, Chair, Commission. Good to be back before you this evening to talk about the general plan. I know we were just here previously last month giving you a little bit of an update. So I'll try and keep my comments brief this evening, knowing you had a full agenda. But Steve provided a great introduction in terms of the different bodies and community members that assisted us through this process, and it's great to be at this milestone. I'm going to hit kind of three key points. We'll talk about process and progress, but going to be a little light on that, focus more on the actual draft of the plan, and then turn it back over to the commission for any questions. We talked about this graphic before, haven't really changed too much from when we were before you for our work session. So as Steve pointed out, we have our two hearings that we must provide in front of the Planning Commission. This first being a public meeting, but no decision, and then the follow-up meeting will actually provide the recommendation. Both meetings will provide a similar presentation for the benefit of the community, but obviously this evening we're open to any feedback or comments, and if we don't have an answer for you, we're happy to bring that back before you at our future meeting. We talked about this in our previous work session about all the outreach that went into this effort. This is a community-driven plan. It is then ratified by the community, and thus we had very robust public outreach. But through all of that process and outreach, it generated this plan, the 2035 Growing Goodyear, Planning Our Future. As we have presented a few times now through this process, the plan is predicated on a foundational vision statement, and that vision statement was refined through the work of our General Plan Committee. Through that work with the General Plan Committee and the visions, defining that vision statement, along with that, we had a series of 6 fundamental strategies. Those strategies help provide further detail to the vision and the components that went into that. These fundamental strategies then became chapters of the plan and allowed us to organize the plan to better define and roll up to that vision statement. So within each of those chapters of those fundamental strategies, I wanted to lay out how those are constructed, because we really tried to focus on creating a plan that had some consistency to it from chapter to chapter, so that it helped with the navigation of the plan. You could become familiar with how the plan is presented. You can then hopefully find it more user-friendly and thus help guide the community better. So these are a couple snapshots of the plan itself. Each chapter has the same components in it. So it starts off with an introduction and some planning considerations to kind of set the tone about what specific issues were brought up by the community through our outreach efforts. And then based on those planning considerations, we then have a series of goals and policies within each specific chapter that focus, as you can imagine, on specific topics or elements that state statute emphasizes the plan must address. So here we provide a little breakdown for residents to understand what all the different components mean and how they can be used. So again, we're trying to give not only the content, but direction to residents so that they understand what they're reading and what its role within the plan is. Along with those components, we also have areas throughout the plan where to find more. The general plan is just that, general. So there are other documents that help implement such a policy document, and those are action or master plans, but they also can be other portions of the plan itself. So this example shows where you can find more in terms of action items and indicators of progress in other portions of the plan, but these are also used to mention the Transportation Master Plan, for example, or the Parks and Rec Master Plan. So trying to leave those trail of breadcrumbs, right, for residents, so that when they're reviewing the general plan, they also, if interested in a specific topic, can go find more information and be better informed. So we presented in our previous meetings about the different topics that were top of mind for residents. And so I won't go back through this bulleted list. It hasn't really changed since we had previously presented to the commission. But what I wanted to kind of capture is just the simple content to the right there of all of this feedback from the community. All this work into the general plan really resulted in the development of 31 goals, which are supported by 230 policies. And so it's that component of the plan that is really, the guiding aspect of what will be used by the commission, what will be reviewed by residents or council to inform your decision making. And so we tried to be succinct in the goals, but then provide robust policies to explain what those goals consist of or how we can go about achieving those goals. Now, within the plan, of course, as I outlined, we have many goals and policies, but we are also supporting those with maps. And land use and circulation plan is certainly one of them, and the most frequently referenced plan in the general plan itself. Some of the highlights that I'll just mention in terms of the land use and circulation plan is that we did preserve the land use categories predominantly. When you look at this particular land use, there's not a significant amount of changes on the map itself that were facilitated through this update effort. But what we did do is refine some key components of the plan. So, for example, the mobility corridors, which are the blue kind of hatched areas, we enhanced those in areas that are either developing or connecting village centers that might have multimodal uses either existing on them or anticipated. So that's an example of where we refined the plan. We didn't do any comprehensive changes, but we certainly tried to improve some of the existing components that were present on the plan. We also looked at developing a farm focus overlay. That overlay is intended to recognize existing farming within the community and allow opportunity for that farming to continue until such time that a particular development occurs in the future. So we heard from the community that they appreciated the agriculture history of Goodyear, and so recognizing the existing farming operations and allowing those operations to be consistent with the plan, I think helped stitch everything together, the past and the future. We also looked at rural transitional development, and that occurs more in the southern portions of the planning area. As we discussed before, we got down to the Mobile area and talked to residents down there, and we heard a lot from those residents that said, you know, the colors on this map don't really reflect the existing development that exists down there and that is probably within the planning horizon of this general plan. And so we wanted to respond to that and develop this rural transitional overlay to similar to the farm focus overlay, to recognize that there are interim uses that should be allowed to occur in those rural areas until such time that development kind of reaches that area. And then, of course, that would set the tone for the zoning code to also look at revisions and updates to reflect that same mentality. And then last, we did expand the planning area in the southern portion in this particular area. It allowed the city to expand some of the open space area and wildlife linkages from the Estrellas down to the National Monument. And so I think that was something that also was beneficial to continue to preserve the open space areas within the Estrellas particularly, and then provide those wildlife linkages. When we look at the growth areas, we updated the specific growth areas to, one, align certainly with development trends across the northern and Estrella portions of the community. But we also refined the boundaries of those areas. We expanded some areas to align with economic development, particularly in North Goodyear. But all of the growth areas that are shown on this map, we worked with staff to refine to ensure that they align with the anticipated developments in that area and recognize the impacts that are occurring with that development. And then last, I'll talk, we did introduce into the plan, there isn't an existing parks, trails, and open space plan in the current general plan. We prepared this parks plan in congruence with the Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. So this is really trying to just stitch together that consistency between that Parks and Rec master plan that will really provide a lot of the detail about the implementation of parks and recreation throughout the city. But this merges that parks and trails component to kind of allow residents to see that the city does have, does recognize a comprehensive system of trails and open space, and it is diligently, as development occurs, adhering to that. And so this plan is offered to just confirm that effort. When we talk about the general plan, we get into goals and policies and maps, but really it does come down to implementation. And so this graphic, in terms of the implementation chapter, conveys all of the goals that are listed within the plan and how they address the state required elements or topics of the plan, but also it works to show how there's cross-pollination from one goal across many topics and not just siloed, that we're providing a goal to address one issue. We're actually providing goals to address many issues and thus be more effective in planning for the future. Now, when we look at all of those goals, we also have recommended actions to, it's almost a two-pronged viewpoint, right? That the general plan has a series of policies to inform decision-making, but it also has a series of actions to help champion the general plan and achieve those goals. So we can really accomplish our goals in a couple different ways through implementing this plan. These recommended actions then are listed to help provide staff direction in terms of initiating efforts to move some of these goals forward. But it also provides the community a line of sight in terms of what the community might be focusing on in the next 10 years. But when we talk about implementing those actions, one thing that I would compliment staff in the city is the existing general plan has a series of measurements or indicators of progress, and we carried that forward through this general plan update, and that is not required by state statute. That is not necessarily something you find in a lot of general plans, that the city recognizes some of the different indicators that it can or will track to help understand how the city's doing from a year-to-year basis in achieving the overall objectives of the plan itself. So with that, I'll just close to remind us that we have our alternate site where we will be seeking a formal recommendation from the Planning Commission on October 25th. Based on that recommendation, we'll then go before City Council for consideration on November 13th. If that is approved, we then go to a vote under a special election on May 21st of 2024. And with that, Chair, I'll turn it back over to you for any comments or questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions regarding the presentation tonight? It was well done. I always forget how far Goodyear goes south.
Oh, yeah.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any speaker cards?
I've not received any.
Is there anybody out there? Anybody in the audience like to speak? All right. I see lots of no. Move on. With that, I'll close the public hearing. And no action will be taken on this item at this time. There'll be another public hearing for the general plan on October 25th, 2023 at former City Hall. Awesome. Thank you. Staff communications. Anybody? Oh, no worries, Katie.
There. Okay. Thank you. Well, first I wanted to say welcome to our newest commission member, Jeremiah Smith. Did you get a chance to say hello to everyone before the meeting? Excellent.
Welcome, Jeremiah.
We're excited to finally have a full commission appointed. And then I wanted to give an update on the items you heard at your last meeting. At the September 25th City Council meeting, They considered the multifamily rezone at Hudson Commons. That one was the one that was recommended for denial by the commission, and council did approve that item. They also approved 5 other items: the 2 zoning ordinance text amendments for the business park and the freeway sound attenuation, the fueling station at Lake and Park, the industrial rezone project at MC85 in Saraville, and the industrial rezone project at McDowell and Citrus Road. And that's all I have. Do you have anything, Christopher?
All right, thank you. The next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting will be held on October 25th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the former Goodyear City Hall, room 117. There being no further business to discuss, this meeting is adjourned. Drive safe.
Moose lodge.